And now we're going to get to some real fucking news. Okay, I'm going to lower the audio here because Dream's audio was awful. It's time to talk about Brazil.
Brazil's presidential election is heading for a second-round runoff after no candidate won 50% of the vote. The socialist former president Luis Inácio Lula da Silva has 48%. The right-wing incumbent Jair Bolsonaro won 44% of the vote. Well, Lula was tipped to win this first round outright, and when he didn't, he acknowledged he and his supporters have a lot of work to do over the...
Which is surprising. Actually, the person who overperformed in this circumstance was Jair Bolsonaro. But at this stage, this motherfucker is undefeated, okay? I mean, God has tried to kill him probably like, what, 1,000 times. Survived getting shanked, survived getting COVID 100 times, survived having such a burp attack or such like a bad hiccup attack that he had to like have metric tons of poo-poo come directly out of his fucking nose. He goes to the hospital for fun. Okay, he's in the hospital every fucking week. And now he survived up until at least the runoff election. Now, why is there the 9/11 towers in between them? I do not know. Let's continue.
Few weeks until the runoff at the end of October. Our South America correspondent Katie Watson reports from Sao Paulo.
There were cheers for Lula as well as tears. But this wasn't the outright victory that his supporters had hoped for. Polls had predicted a 14 percentage point gap between him and Bolsonaro, but they vastly underestimated the support for the right-wing leader. After the results, Lula said there would be no let-up in campaigning.
I've never won an election in the first round. It's like destiny wants me to work a bit more. We are going to win the election again. It's just a question of time.
Meanwhile, Bolsonaro had this to say.
I know there's a desire to change from people, but there are certain changes that will end up worse. And we tried to show that during the campaign, but clearly that didn't get through to the most important part of society.
These elections were seen as the most important since Brazil returned to democracy in the 1980s. 11 candidates were running, but only 2 were realistic options. A leftist former leader with a legacy of corruption, or a far-right president criticised for his democratic record.
The election is completely over already. Both Congress and the Senate got co-opted by Christo-fascists. Even if Lula wins, he's probably getting impeached in the next 6 months. Also, that's the Brazilian Congress, not the Twin Towers. Pago. Yeah, from what I understand, a lot of the down ballot races went to partisans of Bolsonaro. So, not great.
The queues on Sunday showed people cared about the outcome. This weekend, Bolsonaro fans paraded their candidate ahead of what they saw as a guaranteed win. They don't believe the polls. They want it.
You know what's really funny about this? Saying he has a history of corruption. First of all, it's Brazilian politics. Okay? Number one is Brazilian politics. Who the fuck doesn't have a history of corruption? And number two, Lula's corruption was directly directed by one of Bolsonaro's allies. Like, we are not living in the pre-2019 era. We're living in it. We're living in 2022. You already know what happened. He was cleared of it. He's no longer in fucking jail.
14 months and no brain rot. Let's go.
Greenwald actually wrote about the Brazilian election results. This is the one avenue where I trust some of his takes. Some key points on Brazil's election. First, President Lula finished ahead of Bolsonaro by 5 points, 48% to 43%, but he had to clear 50%. Because he couldn't clear 50%, there's going to be a runoff. However, fear not. Obviously, a lot more allies of Lula exist in the not in the down ballot races, but like in other candidacies, which will now unite against Jair Bolsonaro, which means that Jair Bolsonaro is most likely not going to win. Okay, so Lula is the favorite to win. It's not guaranteed but he is favored to win, except Lula, people wanted Lula, or people thought that Lula was going to win in the first round outright with a 50%.
Every month and still get ads anyway. Yay, 5 months.
Okay. Despite Bolsonaro's second place finish, Bolsonarismo had an extremely good night, far better than polls predicted. That's true. Bolsonaro's party will now have the most seats in both the Senate and the House. A Bolsonaro ally won governor of Rio, and another is favored to win Sao Paulo. It was by no means a disaster for the left as it was in 2019. However, the congressional candidate with the most votes nationally was a 26-year-old Bolsonaro fanatic with 1.4 million, but the second highest vote getter was Guilherme Boulos, long viewed as a rising left-wing star. The biggest loser of the night was the longtime dominant establishment party, the center-right PSDB. It all but disappeared. As we have seen in Western democracies, the stodgy center-right has been almost entirely replaced by right-wing populism, represented by Bolsonarismo. This is, of course, the same kind of right-wing populism that Donald Trump did. Nearly identical, for the record. For those of you who are wondering, I've talked about this time and time again. Bolsonaro's style of politics, his brand of politics, is almost identical to Donald Trump's style of politics, to a T, where they sometimes use the same exact memes. Like his children, his fail sons, just like Donald Trump's fail sons, are looking at the same exact memes and repeating them, ironically, campaigning on the exact same talking points, okay? Exactly. Like, you have more unique fascism in places like Italy, where you talk about, family values, anti-LGBT, all this shit, right? But then you turn around and you're like, well, I'm also like pro NATO, like the Italian fascists are, right? Whereas in Brazil, it's to a fucking T, damn near identical to the American-style Trumpian right-wing populism. One vital point, it is hard to overstate what a disastrous night this was for mainstream polling. I have never seen polls be so radically wrong. They didn't just pick the wrong winners. In some of the most important races, they were off by 20 to 30 points, always in the left's favor. Of course, he's got to still, rip one to the left, but, I mean, I guess he's not wrong on that. Regardless, so we'll let him have it. I'll give you a couple examples to illustrate how severe it was. In the Senate race in Sao Paulo, the left-wing candidate was predicted to win by 17 points over the Bolsonarista candidate, 47 to 30%. Instead, the Bolsonarista candidate won by 14 points, 50% to 36. Okay? That's a 31-point error. Polls undercounted the Bolsonarista candidate's vote by 20 points. Something similar happened in the SP governor's race. The left-wing candidate Haddad was predicted to finish first. The Bolsonarista won by 42 to 35. They'll have a runoff. In the other big state, Rio de Janeiro, the incumbent governor, Bolsonarista Castro, was predicted to finish first by 9 points over his left-wing opponent, requiring a runoff. Instead, the Bolsonarista destroyed him, winning the first round by 31 points. Right now, what is happening in Brazil is this. Poorer people, and there's a lot of poverty in Brazil, are on the side of Lula. They are campaigning for Lula. Richer people are very much right-wing. And in an identical capacity, they still are, of course, leading. It's leading to the same exact kinds of results. While polling for the presidential race was less terrible, the most mainstream and prestigious polls had Lula winning by 13 to 18 points. Lula won by 4. Most had Bolsonaro with a 34 to 37%. He ended up with 43. Just an awful performance. Polling errors were so bad, even New York Times last night acknowledged Bolsonaro and his supporters were proven right when they insisted the polls can't be trusted, that they were clearly undercounting support for Bolsonaro and his movement. Even the New York Times itself.
Lamalad saw it last night and was like, dude, you're 37, smiley face.
As much as people shit talk France constantly, we're the only ones to get rid of our dictators. It's coming down to those who don't understand or have class consciousness. They think Lula is their enemy and Bolsonaro acknowledges them. Yeah.
New Jersey is the best state.
People are talking about DIY HRT on Twitter, and I'm just curious, could we talk about it? Love you. No. Absolutely not.
Was watching compilations of HasanAbi speaking Turkish, and I wanted to ask when was the last time you went to Turkey?
Instead, it was Mr. Bolsonaro who was celebrating while the challenger, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, a former leftist president, finished the night ahead, but he far outperformed the forecasts. Bolsonaro had claimed for months that the polls were underestimating his support, using his enormous rallies as evidence, yet every trusted poll showed him behind. This also, ironically, happened. Not exactly. You have a lot of poor people being manipulated by religion and priests to vote for Bolsonaro. Brother, you are getting caught in the same exact trap that Republicans do here in America. Of course, there are more people than there are more poor people than there are rich people. So, of course, there's going to be more poor people voting for either party. However, when you look at the actual statistics, you will realize that the Republican Party statistically is getting a larger share of the richer vote than the Democratic Party. Crazy. That's how this works. Okay? And it's the same shit happening in Brazil as well. It is an incredibly effective and idiotic way to massage numbers to make you think that, like, oh man, a lot of poor people are surely supporting Bolsonaro. Yeah, of course there are poor people supporting Bolsonaro. There are more poor people than there are rich people everywhere. Okay? But having said that, there are far more poor people voting for Lula than there are voting for Bolsonaro. That's the point. And there are far richer people voting for Bolsonaro than there are voting for Lula.
Sup, chat.
Okay? And yes, of course, that religion plays a gigantic role in this. Okay? Of course.
Titties.
Anyway, Telegram groups of Bolsonaro followers instructed people not to declare vote for Bolsonaro to polls. What? Any chance HasanAbi comes to Brazil? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. As the New York Times noted, the huge polling errors wholly due to undercounting of support for Bolsonaro and his movement. It wasn't just at the presidential level, but throughout the country. In many of the key races, having credible polls are important. Who would believe them now? Same thing happened in 2018 in Brazil with polls missing the wave of Bolsonarismo. We have, of course, seen Trump support undercounted by polls in 2016 and 2020. Polls are broken. They're undercounting right-wing support, and it's vital this be fixed to maintain credibility. Then there is the more important question of why Bolsonarismo, even with COVID, widely viewed as mismanaged, and all of his harms is growing, even if Bolsonaro himself loses. Beyond his party, now being the largest in Congress, 7 of his ministers were elected to the Senate. Very few of the explanations for the growth of Bolsonarismo are Brazil-specific. We see the same dynamics throughout the democratic world and in the U.S. In some, the damage wrought by establishment neoliberalism fosters valid rage, then channeled into right-wing populism. God damn it, Glenn Greenwald, I cannot believe I'm saying this, is spitting right now. I do agree with this take almost to a fucking T. If you don't have adequate left-wing populism, okay, a worker-first movement as a counter to neoliberalism, the only kind of counter to that is going to be people who are still interested in straight up having the exact same hierarchy and the exact same power dynamic. However, they're going to do some fake left-wing populism and some very real right-wing populism, which is fascism. Those guys are going to win because people are angry. People are frustrated. They don't like the hand that they've been dealt, and they're looking for an out. They're looking for someone to channel that rage. Okay? And that's what's going on here. Here's the article I wrote about Bolsonaro's 2018 win. I changed a few things 4 years later, but the core perspective about why Brazil, a long center-left country, suddenly embraced right-wing populism still applies. Just to correct one point in the thread, at least 7 of Bolsonaro's ministers were elected to Congress, meaning either the House or the Senate, and not the Senate, as one of those tweets stated. Just to underscore the strength of Bolsonarismo in last night's election, how it will endure if Lula defeats Bolsonaro in the runoff. Bolsonaro's party has the most seats in the House, the most any one party has had since 1998. Lula's party is next with 68. 30-seat difference.
I cry like that when I see the delivery driver.
It goes beyond people being like, ah, fuck it, YOLO. People, we're just dumb and we like Bolsonaro, okay? It goes beyond that. Here is Bolsonaro's take. He is not a Bolsonaro supporter, by the way. That's just a meme. Brazil, most voted party in the Chamber of Deputies by state. Bolsonaro's Liberal Party comes first in 9 states, including some of those won by Lula. The PT's best performance is in Piauí, is that how you say it? Where they got 34%. Also, Lula's best state, 74%.
3 months on the brain rot.
Okay. Liberal Party is the right-wing party. I don't think people understand. Liberalism is a right-wing. Liberalism is what Americans understand libertarianism as in every other fucking Western nation that has a multi-party system. For those of you who don't know, liberalism inherently also, because it's anchored around the protection of private property, is a right-wing concept. But in America, we don't have that because America is so fucking far to the right across the board that we literally think like, oh yeah, liberalism, that's the greatest, that's the most left. The more liberal you are, the more fucking leftist you are, right? That's how it works. No. Anyway, a little bit of, political education for a lot of you. That's why neoliberalism is a Reaganite attitude here in America, a right-wing concept, and a right-wing concept, a Tory attitude with best demonstrated by Margaret Thatcher. Okay? Neoliberalism is an extension of liberalism. It's just like liberalism unhinged, unshackled, with a slant towards undermining any kind of governmental control over the markets.
Yo.
Comparative Political Theory 102 with Professor Hasan. Anyway. Worst results in the Chamber of Deputies were for PSDB, which was until 2018 the main right-wing party and now has less than 20 deputies, and for the center-left parties, PDT, and PSB, which lost about half their combined seats.
I can't believe you've done this.
Here's the elected senator in each state, a little bit dynamic from the Chamber of Deputies. Since only one person gets elected from each state in alternate years, and parties will often align in those races.
Jeffrey Dahmer looks better.
Let's take a look at BBC's analysis.
Criticized for his democratic record. The queues on Sunday showed people cared about the outcome. This weekend, Bolsonaro fans paraded their candidate ahead of what they saw as a guaranteed win. They don't believe the polls. They wanted a first-round victory too, and they won't give up their fight.
Why not believe in democracy? It's time to change. Let's change. But let's change peacefully.
There's going to be beautiful blood spilt in this city, this man tells me. I'm prepared to kill all the socialists and communists.
We're another one.
That's cool. I love the way he's describing it. Just, guys. Most average Bolsonaro supporter, okay? Just the least violent Bolsonaro supporter. It's so cool that they're just like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And he's like, yeah, I want to fucking, I just want to murk every Lula supporter on the planet. Respectfully. I just want to kill people because they're socialists. Respectfully, of course.
In the world. After Sunday's results, Lula fans remained upbeat.
I'm not disappointed actually because I already...
Bro, every Lula fan looks like a HasanAbi head. What the fuck's going on here, dude? Dude, what the fuck? Anthony Fantano looking ass, dude.
I expected that we wouldn't win in the first turn, but at least we are ahead in the overall results.
Bolsonaro said that polls are a lie. Do you think that he's got a point?
I think he will.
I've been on this platform this long.
I think he will be a bad loser.
So what do you make of the results?
We were expecting to make it on the first turn, but we are very happy that it's a win, and we are really, really happy. And in the second turn, it's going to be Lula. And we can't stand Bolsonaro anymore. Like, I'm an LGBT person, and we want our rights, and we want our people to have our voice in this country.
Yeah, people are like, Lula supporters are like, I'm LGBT and I would like to not be murdered. And then Bolsonaro supporters are like, it's going to be so beautiful when we literally murder them. That's cool. That's it. That's nice, dude. That's cool. I mean, that's... One non-murdering me, please.
Much more of relief than a victory parade. The race for the presidency is far from over. The next few weeks will see intense campaigning, and it's about to become much more personal.
Brain rot and going strong. Thanks at HasanAbi.
Two political foes now going head-to-head to lead Latin America's biggest nation. There's concern this race could also get violent. Katie Watson, BBC News in Sao Paulo.
Well, with me is Natalia Passarinho from the BBC Brazil service. Thanks for joining us. What are the reasons that people think that Lula did not win outright on this first round?
Well, opinion polls were already showing that if Lula were to win, it would be by a small margin. And so he was within the margin of error that the opinion polls have. But also the turnout has decreased a bit this year compared to 2018.
I gotta pee.
About 20% of Brazilians did not go to vote, and most of them are the poor who have more difficulties going and voting. And Lula is said to be more popular among the poor, so he might have lost some of his votes among his core supporters.
What are the issues that the public are most concerned about? What is sort of driving them to vote one way or the other?
Well, the economics for sure. The state of the economy in Brazil is not very good. For quite a while, inflation was going high, unemployment was high as well. The economic indicators are getting better now, and perhaps that also helps explain a bit of optimism that could have driven votes to Bolsonaro. Health as well. Brazil was very badly hit by the pandemic. About 700,000 people died, and this is the main issue that might have driven votes away from Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro was very much criticized by his handling of the pandemic. But the big question now is whether or not Bolsonaro will recognize the results of the election if he loses on the second round. He has been casting doubts on Brazilian electronic voting system, and many people say that a runoff brings more risks, that he will continue to say elections might be rigged. And this time around, Brazilians are not electing senators, governors, as much as they were on the first round. Only the ones that are going to a second round, the governors that are going to the second round. So people say, analysts say that there's a risk that he might be more successful in driving his voters to question the results if he loses on the second round.
And are his supporters with him on that? I mean, are they also questioning?
Yeah, January 6th, dude. They're literally, it's the same shit. Look to America if you want to see what's going to happen in Brazil, okay? Straight up. And the difference, though, with Donald Trump and Bolsonaro is that Bolsonaro, one, comes from a military background, two, unironically ran back in the day claiming that a military dictatorship would be better, has regularly said and continued throughout his reign, continued saying that he thinks the military dictatorship would be better. Brazil has a closer history with it being a military dictatorship, unlike the United States of America, which at least has like the veneer of a Western liberal democracy. And lastly, he at least has some loyalists within the military. He would need a lot more than some. He would need a lot more than some, but ultimately he has some. Whereas it would not work in the same way for
would end before my brain rot.
For Donald Trump. He literally said the elections were fraudulent when he won in 2018. You know who else said that? Donald Trump. He also said at the top of the hour there's a 6-second ad break, and if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5 or for free with the Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account.
Such a long time.
Okay? He did say that. He was like, I want you to watch all the ads, believe me. But if you somehow don't want to, then all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. By connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, you get one free Prime subscription a month. Use it on your favorite broadcaster. Your stream is fun. Thank you. We like to look at very complicated, convoluted, horrific stories all around the world. And, make light of it and try to make educational content
Only 2 months
in an
and I've
entertaining
already felt my
capacity.
brain melt away.
If you like that,
Can't wait
then,
for 3.
maybe you're lucky and you get gifted a sub and you no longer see the ads. Or, that's if you like it, you can subscribe. Here's the 1-minute ad right now.
Questioning the legitimacy.
Not all of them. Yeah, not all of them, but part of them are helping spread these messages online. The BBC.
Oh, by the way, before I did the segue, I was going to say, Donald Trump said that. He won in 2016. And if you remember, the first thing he did after winning in 2016 was, because he lost the popular vote, claim that the elections were fraudulent. He also set up immediately a group to look at the election integrity. He set up a committee, the Election Integrity Committee. He, of course, quietly disbanded the Election Integrity Committee when the results came back and showed that he was full of shit and that the elections were not actually fraudulent in any capacity whatsoever. Many presidents have done this in the past, and their results are always the same. But Donald Trump did do that. He was a sore loser, as we remember from the 2020 election, but he was certainly a sore winner too.
BBC Brazil has reported on thousands of groups on WhatsApp and WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, spreading messages of about the electronic voting system without presenting any evidences that the system could be flawed.
Natalia Pastrigno, thank you very much indeed.
Has Raid Hassel.
The latest on the war in Ukraine,
Before we get to Ukraine, though, I'm not done yet. Look at this. Juan Guaido, who was promoted by many self-described liberals as the heroic champion of Venezuelan democracy, supporting a far-right extremist over a social democrat in Brazil's elections. That's crazy. Venezuelans will follow the Brazilian election with apprehension, asking God for Brazil to continue to be a refuge and hope, and also so that we never go back to electing politicians who support and finance a dictatorship that massacres them. It's so strange. Juan Guaido, what? That's weird. Why is he fucking defending a straight-up proto-fascist? What the fuck? Weird. Odd. Would have never thought that is what would have happened here.
Let's go, PogChamp.
Really not crazy if you're familiar with Lula's ties to Hugo Chavez and the Maduro government. Yeah, but wouldn't you say that unironically and unconditionally that Bolsonaro's government is fucking worse?
Let's go.
Excuse, he said he stole clothes from me. Is that true? He did. I gave him a shirt, a long sleeve shirt of mine. He needed, motherfucker hadn't changed this shirt in months. So I was very excited at the prospect of him actually wearing something different. And I tried to give him like a smaller shirt, and he's like, nah, this is too short. Give me an XL. I threw it out. I literally threw out his old shirt. Like I picked it up and threw it in the trash immediately. I was like, bro, take that shit. He's like, no. No, you keep it.
Being you.
Still in my trash if you guys want to buy a crusty-ass XQC shirt. Bolsonaro's not going to pull the fraudulent election this time. Even if he loses, he actually gained political power. He can literally articulate all government spending from his couch because he turned the government budget into a subsaharan kleptocracy to buy Congress influence during COVID. It's way more complex than these lib commentators are painting it. It does seem like Bolsonaro has his grip of power within Congress far beyond what he could have done even. I mean, it would still be best if he wins, right, for him. And I think that a lot of these guys also... I don't know how much of a narcissist Bolsonaro is versus how ideologically aligned he is with like international fascism and continuing international fascism. Because like Donald Trump, I know, cares more about his own personal influence and power than he does about an ideological project for the Republican Party, which is why he'll say stuff like Mitch McConnell sucks all the time. Lives. Like, I don't know if Bolsonaro is fine with a Pyrrhic victory where he himself loses his seat of power, even if his party fucking gains. May not know, but we do. What? On the bright side, he continues to being the only really big figure on the ultra-right side. If he finally dies, everything crumbles.
15 months.
I know he's narcissistic, but like, is he as interested in his own personal success more than the ideological goals? Because some of these guys, the more dangerous guys, are the guys who care about the ideological like furthering the ideological agenda of a far-right nationalist, ultra-Christian movement, right? Donald Trump doesn't have that. He has no, like, legitimate ideological underpinning that motivates him. Like, he's not like, oh, thank God, the Republican Party is winning, or thank God we're doing shit. He just cares about, like, lowering taxes and not going to prison and having personally being in a position of power. He likes that shit. And I don't know if Bolsonaro is a grifter like Trump in that regard, or if he genuinely cares about the success of a larger project. Leaked phone call shows Marjorie Taylor Greene as a communist. That's crazy, man. Take a day off, actually. Take a day off, respectfully. Maybe you should take a month off, but, I'm just giving you a day for now. You should be excited that I only gave you a day, you fucking piece of shit. There was one other thing before we get to Ukraine. There was another thing I wanted to talk about with Brazil. Oh, here it is. Hold on.
10 months.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with Lula, I think maybe this will be decent, right? There's a Gravel Institute video on him.
Americans generally think of Brazil as a country of beaches, jungles, and Christ the Redeemer, a friendly tourist destination with fun and festivity. But Brazil isn't just a nice spot for a vacation. It's one of the most unequal countries in the world. It's also a country with one of the most successful socialist movements of our time. In 1888, Brazil abolished slavery, the last country in the Americas to do so. But even after a republic was established in 1889, elites excluded most people from voting, using their power to enrich themselves and their families. For decades, Brazil was a textbook oligarchy based on coffee with milk politics, a reference to the agrarian economies of the two most influential states. The government acted above all to protect elite interests while millions languished in poverty. As Brazil urbanized, peasants flocking to cities could see prosperity around them, but couldn't reach it. They built sprawling informal settlements called favelas, stark illustrations of the country's disparity. By the early 1960s, an alternative vision emerged, based on land redistribution and expanded democracy. Communists, peasants, workers, and students supported this reformist push. But then, fearing a communist takeover, the United States and local elites supported a military coup. From 1964 to 1985, Brazil was ruled by a brutal dictatorship that killed and tortured thousands of people. But by the late 1970s, something was changing. Workers noticed their wages were not keeping pace with the rising cost of living. It turned out they were getting paid significantly less than the regime let on. So, led by a combative, charismatic union leader named Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, commonly known as Lula, workers in the industrial heartland around São Paulo went on strike. Lula understood well the indignities of the working class. His parents were illiterate peasants who struggled to give their kids a better life. And he didn't learn to read until he was 10. When he was 18, he crushed his pinky in a workplace accident. And by the time he was seen by a doctor 4 hours later, there was no choice but to amputate the finger. Driven by these experiences, Lula and those around him realized that workers needed their own political party. So in 1980, they created the Partido dos Trabalhadores, the Workers' Party. It was the first party in Brazil created for workers by workers. The Workers' Party grew quickly, and in 2002, after 3 failed attempts, Lula was elected president. In office, Lula recognized that Brazil's fundamental problem was the grinding poverty and inequality that previous governments had mostly ignored. So in 2003, Lula's administration introduced Bolsa Família, the family stipend. Basically, the government would guarantee an income to families in extreme poverty, those earning less than $17 per person per month. And when poor families over the official poverty line were expecting a child or had a child below 18, they would get extra income too. As long as families get vaccinations and keep their kids in school, they can receive benefits indefinitely. There's no mandatory drug testing and no work requirement. With this guaranteed monthly income, poor families can meet their basic needs and afford safer living conditions. The program doesn't provide a lot by American standards. Most families receive about $38 a month. But
did Brazil find the solution to poverty?
For the neediest Brazilians, it has been transformational. Compared to what other countries were doing, the scale of Bolsa Família was incredible. In the 1990s, US President Bill Clinton had implemented welfare reform. He made it more difficult to access government benefits. Promising to end welfare as we know it, he instituted work requirements and drug tests. It became so complicated and humiliating to secure government assistance that many Americans who needed support received no help at all. Extreme poverty soared. Brazil's radical experiment, meanwhile, had the exact opposite effect. Bolsa Família quickly became an international success story. For one thing, it dramatically reduced poverty. By 2015, the percentage of the population living below the international poverty line had dropped from 13% to just 3%. Bolsa Família helped lift over 40 million people out of extreme poverty. In one of the most unequal countries in the world, it has cut wealth inequality by as much as 20%. Bolsa Família has also significantly reduced child labor and improved educational outcomes for the poorest children. Studies suggest the program has helped lower rates of domestic violence, postpartum depression, suicide, and even tooth decay in children. Bolsa Família isn't just a cash transfer program. It's a successful attempt to wrestle with the legacy of social neglect. For many Brazilians, Bolsa Família is the most tangible example of the state acting on their behalf.
Very handsome today,
it represents the very promise of citizenship.
So cute today,
it directly attacks poverty in the present, enabling families to invest in their children's future. Lula left office in 2010 as one of the most popular leaders on earth, and by far the most popular in Brazilian history. Bolsa Família was a major reason for that. In fact, when a far-right extremist won the presidency in 2018, he sought ways to rebrand the program as his own. So while the United States sought to push people out of poverty by forcing them off welfare, socialists in Brazil did the exact opposite. They opened government support to more people. In the US, poverty went up. In Brazil under Lula, poverty shrunk, inequality fell, and the economy grew to 5 times the size than when Lula took office. Now, Brazil is still marked by serious inequality, but the Workers' Party showed that governments can act to dramatically reduce poverty. The first step is recognizing that poor people don't become less poor if their government calls them lazy or makes them take a drug test just to afford groceries. Enable families to meet their material needs, and they'll lead better lives. Lula remains popular in Brazil because he acknowledged that everyone deserves a dignified life, regardless of their class or income. And as we confront the rot that prosperous elites in this country have allowed to fester for too long, we might learn something from the example of the Workers' Party in Brazil. I'm Andre Pagliarini, professor of history and Latin American studies at Dartmouth for the Gravel Institute.
I don't understand. Bootstrapping and austerity measures are not successful, and that poverty eradication programs are both politically sound
I've been working out from hearing from
because they're
friends, and
popular,
HasanAbi, I was determined to get back into shape,
and
I've
also
lost
good
20
policy
pounds
in general
about 6
because it
months
does
of
end up
karate,
eradicating
gym
poverty.
for
Shut
3
the
months
fuck
to
up!
figure out.
Ah! No one cares about your fucking long ass dono! Fuck, dude.
Love you.
That's good. Concise. Okay? Stop writing fucking essays. Holy shit. Thank you, Passenger Shaming, for the 5 get the subs.
Thanks for saving me from right-wing pipeline all that time ago.
Good job, Ragnarok, for losing 20 pounds in about 6 months. Okay? That's what he was writing. He was writing an essay about how he lost weight. I'm proud of you. But goddamn, man. You don't have to always write an essay, man. That was my dono, you son of a bitch. I've been sub for 55 years, and that was the last time you'll ever disrespect me. Never coming back. $2.50 sub. Ironically, a tier 3. All right. Ukraine takes key hub from Putin's forces. It's time to once again talk about Pooty Poo. It also ties back to Elon Musk and how angry people are at Elon Musk for a spicy facility take. 34 J6 defendants have signed a letter complaining about conditions in the D.C. jail and are requesting they be transferred to Guantanamo Bay. That's pretty funny. We'll see what happens there. Let's take a look at Pooty Poo.
Forces have taken back control of a key city claimed by Russia, and Putin is raising new nuclear threats in the face of military setbacks and new opposition inside Russia. Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell is on the scene in Ukraine. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, George. This is the road to Liman, where the Ukrainians have just pulled off another stunning victory. Remember, this is one of the regions declared part of Russia by Vladimir Putin on Friday, and yet one day later, he was already losing territory as his war plans start to look in serious trouble.
This morning, Ukrainian troops on the march, reclaiming key areas from Russia in the south and east, liberating the strategic city of Liman in the Donbass, one day after Putin declared the area annexed and part of Russia, soldiers raising the blue and yellow of the Ukrainian flag, celebrating an important victory. Liman was a vital transportation and logistics hub for Russia. Losing it is another major setback for the Kremlin's military supply lines in their efforts to secure the Donbass region. Russia's campaign has suffered.
Sometimes you treat chat like shit. Hurt specifically for those who see you as their favorite streamer. Okay, take a second off and reconsider what you just said. Okay, I'm covering the news. Covering the news. Time and place, time and place, time and place, time and place, time and place, time and place, time and place. This community runs on back and forth interaction. So therefore, I always expect you to conduct yourself in a certain way that is complementary, okay, to the content, to the material. Okay? Stop being parasocial and whining about it.
major setbacks this fall. On almost every front, Putin's army is in real difficulty, struggling to hold on to territory it's occupied.
No amount of shambolic mobilization, which is the only way to describe it, no amount of annexation, no amount of even veiled nuclear threats can actually get him out of this particular situation.
Russia's brutal and indiscriminate tactics claiming more civilian lives. 2 humanitarian convoys shelled in just over a week. Investigators discovering the gruesome aftermath of this attack that left 24 people dead, including 13 children and a pregnant woman. We see some of the destruction the war has brought this town.
When Ukrainian troops swept through here in their counter-offensive, it unleashed a chain of events. Putin mobilizing troops, annexing parts of Ukraine, even threatening to use nuclear weapons. What lies ahead is a more difficult and more dangerous period in this war. So I think the question now is, how does Putin respond? We've heard the threats that he's made about defending these new territories by...
Okay. Consent manufacturing happened in the beginning stages of this fucking war, okay? On both sides. Russia tried to act like it wasn't doing a war. Russia tried to act like Vladimir Putin tried to act like he wasn't trying to overtake the entirety of Ukraine all the way to Kyiv, and that this was just a tactical retreat when he wanted to reinforce the eastern flank and the eastern front.
Just this month?
Okay? That consent manufacturing part already happened. It occurred. The Western state media apparatus, or with the state apparatus, alongside the state apparatus, Western media was basically saying, you know, Ukraine is owning, Ukraine is owning, Ukraine is owning, Ukraine is owning, when Ukraine was not owning, okay? Now we've gotten to a point where Russia has solidified its... What? Bro, U.S. is fault reaction, fuck Putin, guilting meaning? What? What are you saying? Shut up. Stop saying weird shit.
Hell yeah, brother.
Russia has always held that it does want to take Kyiv. It's the only West that says they want all of Ukraine. That it does not want to take Kyiv. Doesn't matter. They were bombing Western fronts. They were bombing Western locations. Okay, Ukraine wasn't doing great. Obviously, no. You can't really do great when you're getting fucking invaded. You know, no matter what happens. And now Ukraine actually is performing very well as a consequence of the HIMARS, as a consequence of all the weapons that they're getting, small arms and also large arms. Weapon systems that they're getting from the West. Okay? But if you think that this is, at this stage, consent manufacturing, I don't know what to tell you. It's not. I mean, Ukrainian forces are using everything they can in their fucking power, in their arsenal, to take back some of the territories that they had to retreat from Russian bombing campaigns. Not only is shit not going so well for Russia, if you want further proof that things are not going well for Russia, I mean, you have the forced conscriptions that are happening. That's number one. You don't do that when you're winning. And number two, you have Putin talking about nuclear warfare again. Okay? The idea of, like, if you don't let me win, I'm going to fucking do nukes. I'm going to do the nukes. You called this in February. I did. But everyone only remembers me saying it would be, they don't remember me saying it would be insane and it would be impossible and it would be horrifying for Vladimir Putin to try to overtake Ukraine, a country with 44 million citizens, with its nation-state project being, with its nation-state project hinging on, owning Russians. But it doesn't matter. Everybody only fucking hyper-focused on the other side, where I was like, Putin is not crazy enough to actually fucking go and... HasanAbi is Nazball gang? What? Ew. The fucking least nationalist motherfucker on the planet. Anyway. So now things are going not great at all and really poorly. Part of the one of the things that Putin has done is in the LPR, DPR regions institute these elections. The elections results are going to be overwhelmingly in support of Russia. That's the reason why they were held to begin with. Okay, But part of that is because of the mass amount of displacement that already occurred. You bomb the shit out of the areas. You literally have ongoing conflict in the region. Of course, they're now just exclusive. The people left behind are your people. That doesn't mean that it's adequate. That doesn't mean it's right. Anyway, let's continue with this. I gotta grab my food real quick.
By all available means, even making nuclear threats. But for the Ukrainian soldiers here, they won't stop. And what they say is that they're going to drive every Russian from every bit of their land. And for now, it's the Ukrainians who've got the momentum. George?
Ian Panel, thanks very much. Let's bring in the top spokesman for the National Security Council, John Kirby. John, you just heard Ian Panel right there saying the Ukrainian forces are not going to stop. How do you assess their gains?
They're quite impressive, I think. No question about that. When you look at the northeast part of the country, George, now they are pushing up against the Luhansk Oblast, which will most likely be their next goal here. And of course, that's one of the oblasts that Putin tried to annex late last week. They are also making gains in the south, George. Incremental to be sure, but they are making gains in their counteroffensive down in the south in the Kherson Oblast, and not too far from the city of Kherson. So they are absolutely on the move here, and like you've heard President Biden say, we're going to continue to make sure we can give them the weapons and capabilities they need to continue that kind of progress.
I was going to ask you about that. There are new reports of those gains in Kherson this morning. Is the Russian hold on Kherson, a key strategic city, under threat?
I don't know that I'd go so far as to say it's under threat this morning, George. Again, the progress they've made down in the south has been fairly incremental, but it has been positive progress. There's no question about it.
What do you make of this new nuclear threat that Vladimir Putin launched on Friday? He had a wild speech there on Friday as well. You've talked about severe consequences if he actually follows through with it. Does that mean a NATO attack on every Russian conventional force inside Ukraine?
I don't think we're at a position now where we can talk about that kind of an outcome, George. I mean, these kinds of threats, first of all, they're consistent with the way he's been talking for the last 7 months. And secondly, they are continuing to be irresponsible rhetoric coming from a nuclear power. There's no reason for him to use that kind of bluster, those kinds of threats. We have to take those threats seriously. We must. It'd be easy if we could just blow it off, but we can't. These are serious threats made by a serious nuclear power. So we're watching this as best we can. Now, what it'll mean in the future, we just don't know. But we've got to make sure that, as President Biden said, that we are ready and prepared to defend every inch of NATO territory. And that Mr. Putin understands how seriously we take our Article 5 commitments to the alliance.
In the midst of these threats, we're seeing fierce criticism of Vladimir Putin and his military strategy now, even from inside Russia. Calls for military commanders to be sacked. How unusual is this? How serious a threat is it to Vladimir Putin?
I think it's noteworthy for sure. I mean, over the last 7 months, you haven't seen these kinds of fractures and fissures inside Russia. You're talking about elected municipal officials that are speaking out. Obviously, average Russians speaking out and protesting the mobilization. And now you have people in the information space in Russia, usually pro-Kremlin voices, who are now criticizing the government's handling of the war in Ukraine. It's significant. Now, how Mr. Putin reacts to that is of course, an unknown. We don't know how he's going to take all this external criticism. But I think it's also important, and sometimes we forget that in just the last couple of weeks, 2 of his major countries who have been at least providing some tacit support, India and China, have publicly spoken out against what he's doing in Ukraine and done so right in front of him publicly. So he's losing a lot of sympathetic ears, not only in Russia, but outside Russia as well.
John Kirby, thanks as always.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts.
Jeffrey Sachs on Nord Stream's destruction.
Destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which I would bet was a U.S. action, perhaps U.S. and Poland. This is
Jeff, we got to stop there. That's quite a statement as well. Why do you feel that was a U.S. action?
Come on, bro.
What evidence do you have of that?
Well, first of all, there's direct radar evidence that U.S. helicopters, military helicopters that are normally based in Gdansk, were circling over this area. We also had the threats from the United States earlier in this year that one way or another we are going to end Nord Stream. We also have a remarkable statement by Secretary Blinken last Friday in a press conference. He says, this is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a strange way to, it's a strange way to talk if you're worried about the piracy on international infrastructure of vital significance. So I know this runs counter to...
That's so crazy, man. I can't believe it. There's no way it was America or America-aligned units. I mean, that'd be crazy. What? U.S. and Poland? That's a vast overestimation of Polish abilities? Yeah, no shit, brother. But that doesn't matter. Everything in that region that is done against Russia is being done by pro-America and American weapons, and are people who are trained by Americans. Like, it's not like the Polish submarine force is responsible single-handedly for it. They didn't get a couple Polish motherfuckers riding on, sea lions to go and throw stones at the fucking pipeline, brother.
Dank Hackermans.
You know what I mean? Kurwa, I'm on a jet ski.
To our narrative, it runs. You're not allowed to say these things in the West. But the fact of the matter is, all over the world, when I talk to people, they think the U.S. did it. And just to tell you, and by the way, even reporters on our papers that are involved tell me privately, yeah, well, of course, but it doesn't show up in our media.
Professor, I don't want to get into tit for tat about what did or did not.
Anyway. What's your stance on the nuclear stuff? I mean, I think nuclear saber rattling is fucking terrifying. I don't know what Putin's going to do. Only Putin knows what Putin's going to do. Pooty poo. Anyway, let's hear what the United States has to say about it, though.
The U.S. is developing contingency plans for possible Russian escalation in its war in Ukraine, including the potential use of tactical nuclear weapons. Also, the possibility of what one source described as a nuclear display that would be something short of a nuclear strike, including the possibility of a military strike on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Joining me now to discuss, retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett. He's former Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs, also former Deputy Director for Plans and Strategy at USCENTCOM. General, good to have you on this morning.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
So this shows how seriously the U.S. is taking these Russian nuclear threats. They've been developing contingency plans for some time. I wonder, can you describe what such contingency plans might involve?
Well, I think...
It's like, bro, come on. What kind of defenses do we have?
Shut
up. No, but for real, come on, dude. Just give us the nuclear defenses.
First of all, there's the public face of all of this, which is how we communicate to Russia what we're prepared to do, what we're not prepared to do. My personal view is I think we ought to be deliberately vague on what we are prepared to do. Anytime you draw a red line, that commits you to a certain course of action. Look, I think it's fairly simple to lay down the options. It could be the soft side of it, which is doubling down on sanctions, doubling down on export controls, ranging all the way to a nuclear response of our own and everything in between.
Wow.
It would be likely that this president is not looking at the far end of that, sort of looking at a response in kind, but not with nuclear weapons. Hard
Understood.
Strikes on Russian facilities inside of Ukraine, most likely.
Hey, definitely never hard strikes on infrastructure on global seas, like, for example, a pipeline. That would never happen. I just want to point out, America hasn't done that and will certainly not do that, surely.
That's exactly how General Petraeus described it. He said, hypothetically, and again, he's not basing this on any public, revelation of intelligence, we would respond by leading a NATO collective effort that would take out every Russian conventional force that we could see and identify on the battlefield in Ukraine, also in Crimea. Does that sound like the response you'd be thinking of?
Well, I certainly don't have a vote in the matter, but I think that's certainly one of the options that'd be considered, and I'm glad to see I'm in good company as Dave Petraeus.
Let me ask you this then, because a concern from the start of this war, which has qualified really every U.S. NATO step in response to the Russian invasion, the quality of weapons, the range of weapons, the degree of military support for Ukraine, has been concerns about sparking a broader war with Russia. For instance, that's why the idea of a no-fly zone was eliminated, because that would be putting NATO warplanes in direct conflict with Russian forces. Would a response like this, and this has to be part of the calculation, right? There's a risk of sparking a broader war, is there not?
Brother, if they launch nukes, it's over. What do you mean no-fly zone? It's more like all nuke zone. This stream, if nukes are used, 350K viewers. Yeah, we'll have a banger end to the world. You know what I mean? We'll watch it. That's how it works. There's no world in which it's like, oh, we're going to do a baby nuke, and then you guys will do like a little bit larger of a baby nuke, and then it'll be fine. It's like one nuke is all nukes. Dua Lipa said it best. One nuke is all it takes. Falling in love with me. Possibility. That's what that was about.
There certainly is. But I heard a description of Putin yesterday that I thought was particularly apt. He started off as an autocrat, became a dictator, and now he's a madman.
Wow.
He may be a madman, but I don't think he's suicidal. I don't believe that he wants to be the leader of Russia.
Brother, I said that too. Let me tell you something. People love bringing that up still.
Russia that ends the Russian Federation. So I think we ought to take his threats seriously, but I don't think we should be cowed or coerced into any particular action as a result.
And I should note, and this is in our story this morning, that the U.S. to date has not detected any movements of Russian nuclear forces or weapons that would indicate that such an attack is imminent. I do want to talk about the battlefield right now and Ukrainian progress, because we saw that rapid advance in the northeast at the start of this counteroffensive. Now we're seeing, if not quite rapid advance, but still substantial advance in the south around Kherson. How bad is the situation for Russia and its forces? Have we seen the beginning of a broader retreat here?
That's hard to say, Jim, because if you look at it from classic military analysis, the Russians should be doing far, far better. A quantitative assessment says that the Russians have the advantage. But it's the intangibles that we're seeing on the battlefield, the morale of the Ukrainians, the equipment they have, the leadership that they have versus
the brain rot?
Oh, man, it's like, it's literally the weapons, dog. That's it. It's the weapons. They have a fucking endless funnel.
20 holy hell, you're the man.
There's enough people who honestly and legitimately and earnestly want to defend their country. So there's that. And that is going to happen when you get invaded.
10-month brain rot, let's go.
And weapons.
The exact opposite on the side of the Russians. I don't think you can take a conventional military ruler and measure this as well as may have been in the past. I don't particularly think there's going to be a breakout anytime soon, but there will be continued pressures on the Russians, both in the north and the south.
Brigadier General Mark Himmitt, good to have you on this morning. Thanks so much.
Hi.
The New York Times reporting this. In background conversations, a range of officials suggested that if Russia detonated a tactical nuclear weapon on Ukrainian soil, the options included unplugging Russia from the world economy or some kind of military response, the one that would most likely be delivered by the Ukrainians with Western-provided conventional weapons. Joining us now, one of the reporters behind this story, CNN political and national security analyst David Sanger. This is such a great story, I think, because it really puts us in the moment that we're in, which is kind of an alarming one, although you also do point out, for instance, that there are some reasons why senior officials are saying not to be.
Have you considered that Ukrainians got that dog in them? Brother, no matter what happens, when you're fucking backed into a corner, you got to have that dog in you. You know what I mean? That's what it is for them. It's life or death.
Yes, but culture
that's
politics.
Why they got that dog in them.
I was worried to tune in and you'd be talking about Fortnite or something. One year of cured brain rot, Pog.
The invading force has logistical hurdles to overcome that they're having a hard time overcoming, and the defending force has an incredible amount of help that it's getting from the international community.
Fully concerned at this point in time, but just put into context where we are.
Well, I think where we are, Brianna, is that this is probably one of the most fraught nuclear moments since the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was 60 years ago this month. That said, there's no evidence right now that we see the Russians moving any tactical weapons. They're small, so it might be easy to miss them, but there is no evidence of that at this point. And they don't believe that Putin yet has his back so up against the wall that he would turn to this. It's also not entirely clear how much using a tactical weapon would help him on the battlefield, except to try to freeze things, to basically say to the Ukrainians, if you make one more move toward throwing us out of the Donbass or these other areas, just know that I can take out your entire country and turn it all into wasteland. But the consequences for Putin would be high.
And David, surely Putin knows among those consequences would be global condemnation, that there are still some countries that he has somewhat on his side, including China. He must know that he would very quickly lose that support if he were to do anything on the nuclear front.
I think that's right, Alex. He would. And, China and India are two countries that are continuing to buy oil, for example, and not part of the major sanctions regime. At the same time, what worries most American officials is what happens when Putin comes to the conclusion that the war is going so badly that it's an existential threat not only to Russia, but to him and to his own rule. And at that moment, he may reach for whatever he has got. Now, he may also think that over time, other countries have broken taboos and gotten away with it. You notice it in the speech, the first thing that one last week, first thing he said was, there was Hiroshima, there was Nagasaki, and you set a precedent when you did.
Homie's talking about nuking civilian populations. He said broken taboos, bro. This is why, I always say America and Russia, or American imperialist leadership and Russian irredentist actions are like this, okay? It's like this. Straight up. Because they're talking about they're talking the same game. The only difference is obviously America is the global superpower, so it doesn't matter. They can do whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean?
Did that.
Yeah, that is so alarming because that's part of what has been this campaign of rationalization, right? Where he's saying, oh, they set the precedent. The U.S. set the precedent. He's also, on this rationalization, had these illegal annexations of these 4 areas of Ukraine. And when you look at Russian military doctrine, and he keeps reemphasizing this, as have other Russian officials, nuclear weapons can be used if there is an existential threat to Russia. And now it seems to be the rationalization is, oh, well, this is Russia. So if you go after this, yeah, we could use a nuke.
Right. That is the backwards rationalization. It would also seem to apply to Crimea. And of course, we've seen the Ukrainians attack Crimea, and he's not reached for nuclear weapons at that moment. You know, the oddity of all of this, Brianna, is that nuclear weapons are one of those things that are much more powerful in the perspective, in the threat that you might use it, than they are when you actually go off to use it. And this is not like the old Cold War days where the concern was they would lob a nuclear weapon at the United States, and in return for New York, you take out Moscow or whatever. In this case, he's talking about using a small weapon. Days where the concern was they would lob a nuclear weapon at the United States, and in return for New York, you take out Moscow or whatever. In this case, he's talking about using a small weapon that would be used on presumably a military base, maybe a low populated area. The West is not
cool.
Whatever, dude. You know, back in the day, that was the stakes. You know, we would just talk about stuff like that. Now we're just talking about like baby nukes. Just a little nukey poo.
Not going to fire a nuclear weapon back in return for that. They may.
The threat of nukes is the main usage of nuclear power. That's all he said, and your dumb chat is confused. No matter what happens, it's still pretty bad.
At HasanAbi, can you read my message?
Actually, as we reported, use conventional weapons. There could be some kind of a military response, but not a nuclear response. And so he may well think that, over time, he would get away with this. He also thinks that over time, the West is going to lose interest in Ukraine, that as the winter sets in Europe, the interest in continuing the sanctions is going to diminish. You've already seen protests in Europe about high prices and shortages.
I gave you the Armenian card,
so
but you
he's
never
betting
used the
that we'll lose
WTF,
interest.
man.
The Ukrainian army made another substantial gain over the weekend. It retook the eastern city of Lyman just hours after Russia illegally claimed it as part of its sham referenda. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh and his team.
They're about to be like, damn, dude, Ukrainian forces are actually advancing on Russian territory. This one brilliant tactic makes it so that now Ukrainian forces are actually inside of Russian borders now, because that's Russian territory now.
Looking beautiful today.
No, the noise gate is still off. I just clicked a little bit to see if it was off. It's still fucking off. Okay. Chatter.
Congrats on being bronze 3, Pogu.
It's still on.
Team were on the ground there just moments after the Ukrainian president confirmed Russia had moved out. Nick, give us the latest.
Yeah, Brianna, we're the first television crew into Liman to see the devastation caused by this onslaught back and forth, but also see how ghostly empty it was and hear from locals the possibility that some Russian troops did in fact manage an orderly withdrawal roughly at about the same time that their commander-in-chief, Russian President Vladimir Putin, was standing on a stage and rallying people towards victory, signing pieces of paper declaring where I'm standing and Liman falsely to be part of Russian territory. An extraordinary paradox there that goes to the heart, perhaps, as why this is such a strategic defeat for Russia. Here's what we saw.
It may not look like much, but this is where Putin's defeat in Donetsk began. A prize from the last century, perhaps. But trains and tracks are still how Russia wages war today. Liman, what's left of it, now freed of Russia.
Well, this is what it was all about. The central railway hub here now in Ukrainian hands and devastated by the fighting. And this was such a seminal part of Russia.
Discord is paywalling chess. Bro, the Twitter link that you just sent me is by a man named ISIS member. Like, I'm not clicking on that. I don't know what the fuck's going on there, but Twitter account ISIS member posted the most fire tweet. It's like, I'm not touching that. That's my Kanye West fan, by the way.
Donos, we need to rise up against Lausanne. All that hard work, sweat and tears we give to him.
Russia's occupation.
Yeah, FBI trying to catch me slip. Dude, FBI guy in the chat like, hey, click on this ISIS member account. It's pretty funny, right? Fucking got him, boys! He clicked on it!
Prime sub since Mrs. Can called.
Donetsk and Luhansk. The concern for Moscow is the knock-on effect this is going to have for their forces all the way to the Russian border. On the town's edges, we saw no sign of the hundreds of Russian prisoners or dead that had been expected to follow Moscow's strategic defeat here, nor inside it either. Perhaps they have already been taken away. Instead, utter silence. Only local bicycles on the streets. Several residents told us the Russians actually left in large numbers on Friday.
They left in the night and the day, people said. I didn't see it myself, but they say they sat on their APCs and their bags were falling off as they drove. They ran like this.
It would be remarkable timing that Russia fled Liman in the very same hours that Putin was signing papers declaring here Russian territory and holding a rally on Red Square. A similar story in the local administration, where the only signs of Russia left are burned flags. They ran away without saying a word to anybody, he says. It was bad. No work, no gas, no power, nothing. The shops didn't work. It truly feels as if there is nobody left. A ghostly silence here, apart from occasional shelling and small arms fire. And it is, for so much of this town, utterly destroyed. So many locals, we're told, leaving when the Ukrainian push towards it began. But now it's just this utter ghostliness in a place that's such a strategic defeat for Russia. Gunfire in the distance. They're nervous some Russians may be left. Outside what's left of the court, the constant change and violence is too much for some. Her husband just arrested.
Понимаете, сказать вам правду. Шапку снимаешь, шапку одеваешь. Шапку снимаешь, шапку одеваешь. Что это за жизнь? 72 года, 73-й год. Я не могу спокойно, как крыса в подвале. С подвала вылазить.
Сказать,
а что ж это такое?
Только вы же это не покажете, понимаете? Вы это не покажете. Вчера Украина зашла, проверила документы.
Забрала мужчину, пропал мужчина. Мужчина пропал. Вот вы злородела. Злородела. Шапки одно, шапки снимают.
А люди страдают, блин. Одни бьют, другие бьют. А мы плачем.
The Ukrainian troops we did see had already stopped celebrating. There is little time. They're on the move again. Another Russian target further east, Kremina, in their sights. And those left in Liman, a town cursed.
It was not pro-Russian sympathizers, were they? No, man. People are fucking sick and tired. They don't want the Ukrainian government to come in and be like, all right, you might be a pro-Russian sympathizer. You're going to jail. They don't want the Ukrainian government to be like, hey, we're forcing you to fucking go to war. They certainly don't want the Russian government to come in and be like, hey, you know, you're Ukrainian. We're going to fuck with you. We're going to jail you. It's just, that's the reality of war. The real working class people, the regular working class people get fucked over. They either get forced into conscription, they get forced into service, or they get killed.
3 head.
There's no good side in this circumstance. I mean, there is. Obviously, there is a real and legitimate need for emancipation. and to purge the country of invading forces. Obviously, there is a less evil side, okay, less awful side. But ultimately, that's why I always say at the top of the hour, there's a 6-second ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. There is no good side in that. Okay, all jokes aside, before I do the fucking segue, I'm going to get back to that. I know that was fucked up. Here's what I will say. Okay?
Here we go again.
That is why people constantly talk about ways of ending this conflict. One way of ending this conflict, all ways of ending this conflict is through treaties, okay? Ceasefire agreements, treaties, and de-escalation. It's never by adding more guns into the pile and pushing further, whether it be Russia, pummeling and adding more conscripted forces into the fucking fight and galvanizing trying to galvanize the support internally.
25 months, Sam.
And same goes for the Ukrainian side as well. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to happen with either one side overpowering the other. Okay. Going to happen either with one side overpowering the other, but ultimately still coming to a treaty, coming to the table and negotiating the conditions of surrender. Or it's going to end with just all-out nuclear warfare. Full-blown. Nukes everywhere. 106 chatters rated this ad segue an average of 5.4546 out of 10. Today's best at 646. Nice one, Hasi. Okay, that was a really good fucking ad segue that I did. So good that I had to literally stop myself in between. Okay, the fact that you consider that to be a 546 is mind-boggling to me. I'll just straight up say it. I think that's bullshit that you think that it's a 546. You're wrong. Okay? That was a great fucking segue. That was a 10-10.
You're so hot.
Okay? And the feeling of 10-10 is the same kind of feeling, the same kind of 10-10 feeling you get when there's a top of the hour ad break and you no longer have to see those ads because you have subscribed for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Is that a real bot? What the fuck? Yes, it is. It was an all-time low segue. Yeah, I mean, it was fucked up, but it was a good segue. It fucked you up. All right? It fucked you up. One pog is all it takes. Thank you for the 5 get to subs. Pose XX, thank you for the 5 get to subs as well. Allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads. Here's the 1 minute ad break now.
To have these bars of rusting steel running through it are gathering the ruins to burn for fuel with winter ahead. Left in the wake of Russia's collapse here, a town they took weeks to occupy,
now this is
only hours to leave.
Now, the staggering military defeat that's seeing a knock-on.
It was a low blow. Doesn't matter. It got you the knockout. All people remember is the dirty play. Listen, I'm teaching you a valuable lesson, okay? Don't trust content creators. Get it twisted. Get it twisted. Start using a nuke. Use a nuke. Please start using nukes. Nuclear missiles are an investment and an investment only. You will be victorious. You will win. You will do all of that. You understand? You will become a hegemonic power again and rebuild your fucking empire.
Effect already towards Russia's borders, as you heard there, but there's political consequences too. Open bickering amongst Russia's elite, criticism in the Russian state media, even now.
If last month taught me anything about content creators, it's that I don't trust any of you. Man, I've been consistent for 10 fucking years. I don't give a fuck if you don't trust me. At least you know that I will be consistent no matter what. Okay? Maybe I have consistently bad qualities. Okay? Like I might be too trusting. And I might get owned regularly for that. Okay, but ultimately, I'm still consistent. Yeah, consistently. Sugma. Wait, what's Sugma? Whoa, Sugma balls, no!
remarkable comments from the Kremlin spokesperson saying that they are still discussing with the local populations of the areas of Zaporizhia and Kherson that they occupy exactly how much of those areas, in their mind, are now Russian territory. Utter disarray, frankly, from their political standpoint and their military one too, and also suggestions of Ukrainian progress on the southern front as well. Startling days ahead and just behind us here. Brianna?
Yeah, certainly are. Nick Payton-Walsh, thank you for that report.
Inflation.
Oh, no. A little bit of Turkish news. Turkey inflation is at a 24-year high of 83% after rate
Turkey
cuts.
jumped to a 24-year high 1 week after the central bank cut interest rates again. Inflation now stands at 83% according to the State Statistics Agency. However, an independent inflation research group claims that the actual rate stands at a whopping 180.
Ak günler yok abi. Ne ak günü?
You look like Tommy
Ak günler döviz altında ak gün görebilecek mi Türkler amına koyayım? Ha? Sadece kara günler var Türkler için amına koyayım.
6%. The Turkish government had said inflation would fall with its new economic model.
Ak günler değil, yarrak günler var sadece Türklere. Öte giren şemsiye açılmaz. Balık ekmek 30 lira. Oha. Hamsi tava 50 lira. Oha. Tavuk döner. Ben büyürken Türkiye'de tavuk döner 5 liraydı. 5. Vay amına koyayım. İyice boku yemiş Türkiye yani. Hatta daha bile 3 liraydı. 3. 3 liraya tavuk döner ayran alırdın. Şimdi 20 lira olmuş lan. Ulan tombik ne? Sadece tek tombik olan şey orada parası lan. Oha chat is a expression of shock. It's also very rude to say it like that. But also, I'm saying it's like, chicken shawarma is 20 liras now. When I was growing up, it was like 3 liras. Chicken shawarma was cheaper than regular et döner, which is meat shawarma. And meat shawarma was like 5 liras, and chicken shawarma was like 3 liras with an ayran on the side too. And now it's fucking 20 liras. It's crazy.
Which prioritizes low interest rates to boost production and growth. And how are people in Turkey coping? Take a look.
Not good.
Prices are high. We're really struggling. We have 2 children who go to school. We are only earning minimum wage, and it's hard to make a living.
I'm 19 years old, and I'm not hopeful. I don't think the situation here in Turkey will improve. I don't see a future here. I actually want to go abroad. This is true for most of us.
I don't think inflation is around 80%. It's much higher. I don't know whether the official figures are true or not, but the inflation I feel is much more. That's why it's getting harder and harder to live.
All right, so a difficult situation there for people in Turkey. Ekrem Ekici is here, my colleague from DW Business. Ekrem, remind us, what is the cause for these galloping prices in Turkey?
Well, short answer is the cause is the economic policy of Erdogan government, which is based on cutting interest rates more and more to drive up production and growth, as we heard just earlier. And this is going on since at least a year now because they started to cut interest.
Bro, everybody want to do America shit, but they're not America. You are not him, okay? And I mean this for even like currency mismanagement done by like the Maduro regime in Venezuela, right? Like you do not control the dollar, okay? Like the entire global economy revolves around the petrodollar. It's sold on dollars. They can do that. You can't. It's so wild that these countries think like they have any kind of autonomy within their own countries. You don't. Only America can do this. Turkey can't do that. So when Turkey tries to do it, it doesn't work. There is no MMT for Turkey. Okay? It doesn't work that way.
Interest rates back in September 2021 based on the new economic model.
And for the record, like doing this in the midst of massive inflation is insane. Even America's not doing that shit. Even America is like finally increasing interest rates right now in an effort to try to combat or temper inflation. Okay?
That is aimed at driving the growth by cheap loans so that companies can borrow money on cheaper rates and drive up employment, and that therefore drive up exports and making imports unattractive, so that the pressure is broken over the Turkish lira, so that Turkish economy will be back on track again. But so far what we have seen is otherwise.
Ekrem, the Turkish government has said that inflation would fall with this new economic model that you mentioned there. But inflation is only increasing in line with what we know from traditional economics teachings. Does that mean that Prime Minister Erdogan will change course anytime soon?
No. He made it clear several times recently he won't change course because he sees interest rates as his biggest enemy. And he has signaled just last week that they will go down even further. That means that we will expect more inflation in coming months. And the thing is, with this new economic model, they haven't really achieved their targets, which was, like I said before, which was driving up demand on Turkish lira over foreign currency. But this didn't happen. This cheap loans over Turkish lira are not directly going to production, but they are basically going to reconversion to foreign currency and stocks the cash reserves of the companies, because it's a very volatile economic situation.
As you mentioned, volatile economic situation. We've seen people complaining, saying how hard it is at the moment to cope with these galloping prices. People go to the polls next year in Turkey. What does all of this mean for the government?
Well, if we look back 21 years ago, Turkey was in a very similar situation, and that's what brought the AKP government in power in Turkey. So we might as well face a déjà vu moment 21 years after. But for that, we are still yet to see what is the alternative. For example, what the opposition is saying, and we will probably soon have answers.
Ekrem Ekici from DW Business. Ekrem, thank you.
Ekrem Ekici. Ne ekiliyor Türklerin götüne? Şemsiye işte.
Yep. Turkeys.
Genuinely didn't realize how out of the loop I was with things going on in the world until I started following you recently. It's nice to follow someone who's way less biased about the information they give compared to the news outlets in my city. Thanks, Haas. No, I am biased, but everyone is biased. And the difference is I recognize my biases and I openly admit them.
What happened in Vegas used to have to stay in Vegas, at least when it came to betting on sports. But that's changed dramatically in the past few years, with more than 30 states and the District of Columbia allowing legal betting on games in person, online, or both. It's projected to be a $129 billion industry by 2028. And as Brooke Silva Braga shows us, betting has become increasingly intertwined with the games themselves.
On a Wednesday afternoon in Pittsburgh, a journeyman catcher stepped to the plate.
Strike to Tyler Heineman.
But even this low-stakes baseball moment had people betting on what Tyler would do next.
He's about 4-1 to strike out, 5-1 to hit a single.
In FanDuel's New Jersey office, trader Tom Heenan tweaked the odds, while his boss, Will Twin, looked on.
And this is a big part of what we try and do. We want to give a really innovative betting experience for our customers.
What the fuck? FanDuel has hired Australians, dude? Shut it down. Shut it down. My man said innovative.
Leadoff walk.
Okay, he walked. Someone had walk.
Someone did, at 13-1.
Oh, that's pretty good. They turned their 100 into 1,300 for a walk.
Sports bets used to be placed in Las Vegas before the game started. The odds or point spreads were never discussed during the broadcast.
And don't forget to play FanDuel's over-under game.
Now, in-game betting made from a phone.
What you need to do is download the BetMGM Sportsbook app.
Is promoted seemingly constantly.
This is what I was talking about when I said sports betting, sports books are going to turn America into Australia. It's gonna fucking ruin this country.
Yo, 9 months.
More economies of despair, baby. That's it.
The time I wasted watching you.
We do know how to make our people have the highest amount of gambling debt. Yeah, I know. That's why I said that's Australia, by the way, up there. But you can't see here because I don't have a Statista account. But
love the stream's hassle.
Scored a touchdown in 8 of the last 10 games.
Mike Raffensperger is FanDuel's chief marketing officer.
I personally think there may be no more disruptive force in sports than gaming.
And you must think that's a good thing.
I think it's an excellent thing. And by the way, we're the official sports book of the NFL, the NBA, the NHL. We have a long-standing partnership with MLB, the WTA, the PGA. The leagues think so too.
It's a remarkable reversal for the leagues. Just 10 years ago, they sued New Jersey to stop sports gaming. Here's NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell 5 years ago.
We still strongly oppose legalized sports gambling.
But in 2018, the Supreme Court ruled New Jersey and other states could legalize sports betting.
I think there were a good amount of people that were shocked.
Darren Ravel, who covers the industry for the sports gaming website The Action Network, says leagues that once insisted betting would compromise the integrity of their sports have adopted a new position, that gambling supercharges fan engagement.
I mean, yeah, it's very obvious what's going on here.
Damn, that headband is looking scrumptious.
Twitter account ISIS member has responded to you talking about them on stream. They fucking follow me too. Member. Like, I'm not clicking on that. I don't know what the fuck's going on there, but Twitter account ISIS member posted the most fire tweet. It's like, I'm not touching that.
It does seem a little bit insane how you could so oppose something and then now you're fully into it.
Why do you think the switch?
It's just money.
Pirates at -124. The money is flowing into sponsored pregame segments and in-stadium billboards and naming rights. It's flowing into commercials.
You think Boston's gonna cover?
Why, you know something I know?
And more commercials.
You know what to do.
And more and more and more commercials.
Are these glasses solid gold?
The bet is that there's going to be losers here. And
it's part of the event, and doing bets on events of sorts has been done since ages. It's just important that there are solid regulations for children and so on. Brother, are you fucking nuts? At least like when it was black market or when it was like somewhat illegal, people were still doing it, but it wasn't like directly advertised to your fucking face.
Thanks, Hasan.
Okay? When it's directly advertised to your fucking face, when all bets are off, no pun intended, but actually pun intended, okay? All of a sudden, they're like, even motherfuckers who are like, I don't really know about this. They go, oh, wait a minute. It's so easy. I'll just get on the app and do it.
Hassle.
We need to disincentivize gambling and all other antisocial behavior. Like, come on, this chat is so fucking libbed up. I think that it's really fucking bad. I do.
Get it twisted? Use a nuke. White tick mark.
Especially because like the same things I mentioned when I talked about like alcohol addiction, which is crippling, which is awful.
You will be victorious.
Okay? Alcohol addiction is crippling. It's awful. It'll kill you. It's really fucked up. It'll ruin your life, right? But alcohol doesn't materialize in your fucking pocket when you see it on TV. This, you literally are like, oh, gambling? Sick. Boom. Downloaded the app. That's it. You're done. You're in. Okay? It also ruins sports. If you think that like money is not going to be a reason for why these fucking games, like prop betting is a huge part of betting, right? It's going to now be like you're going to have longer games with like weirder shit happening specifically for that. It makes the games way more interesting, though, in my opinion. Yeah, because now you have money on it, man. If the games were interesting on their own, you would just watch them. If the games were interesting on their own, you would just watch the games. You wouldn't need to drink alcohol to make it more fun. And you wouldn't need to fucking gamble to feel like you have a stake in the matter. And yes, this guy does look like Jank. White Jank.
And that's why, you know, this is a good business.
I need another tutty out of him for $750. It's not looking too good right now.
At FanDuel's new facility inside the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, even a brick-and-mortar sportsbook has a different feel. Picks that win or lose in a matter of minutes.
This is going to be a bet on what's going to happen next.
First touchdown scorer.
All right.
Even with betting windows and kiosks right there, many fans still buried in the app. They could use it home.
Jaguars money line, Trevor over.
And everywhere, parlays.
These are bets that have a lot going on in them.
Yeah,
that's right.
Bets that require many picks to all go right.
We got a 17 left.
My stepdad just put 50 on the Mariners making the playoffs. He's done this every year since 2001. He made so much goddamn money this weekend. I'm happy for you, Just Lane.
No, 17 legs. I mean, come on, you might as well buy a lottery ticket.
Sportsbooks now heavily promote these exotic bets.
You can win a lot of money on a small bet.
The long odds benefit the house. Fans like how much excitement you can buy for a few dollars.
Do you do this for money or do you do it for fun? For fun.
But they're also quick to bring up those rare magic occasions.
He hit 5 during the NBA season.
When $20 turned into something like $4,600.
What do you remember about that night?
I was sweating, pacing around my room.
How much of the 4,600 do you still have?
Not much. I lost 500 the next day.
In the front row of the sportsbook, we found Kenny Ackerman, a self-described lifelong gambler from Connecticut, who can finally legally bet on sports in his home state.
This didn't exist, like, really recently. It's a whole different world. Yeah. What do you make of that?
Sports betting is so funny. Now that I know that they literally stop you if you're doing too well, sports betting is hilarious to me, okay? They literally are like, oh, no, you're doing too good. You can no longer bet. That's insane, okay? Yeah, a lot of people don't know this. I didn't know it either. You can actually get fucking limited, rate limited at a sports book if you're killing it, okay? Because, like, ultimately, there's a lot of luck involved in sports, obviously. But it's like the stock market. The stock market has a gambling component to it. Of course, it's like luck-based gambling too, but there's skill involved in it as well. And with sports betting, it's the same shit. If you're winning too much during sports betting, because you could literally, not any of you dumbasses, but some people could literally fucking win frequently, they will stop you. I looked up the limit after you said that, and recently FanDuel upped their per day win limit to $1 million a day cap. Oh my God, it used to be $75K. You won $75,000 in one day on FanDuel. They were like, you're done. You're out. Now they're like, you can make up to $1 million a day. It tells you how profitable they are. Yeah. Holy shit. They can fucking tank a $1 million bet. arbing is a legit way to profit from sports betting regardless of the outcome. Most gambling sites will refuse your bets if they suspect you're arbing. What the fuck is arbing? Arbitrage? Oh, betting on both sides. Oh. Arbitrage betting? Betting from an Arby's. The main component that makes sports so wonderful is the element of of probability. Okay, you got skill versus skill. You got players that are working hard, playing hard, fighting against one another, and it's real and it's honest. Okay, the closest we can ever get to a meritocracy. This level of involvement from the gambling industry will completely destroy that. I'm sorry, dude. When there's too much, when there's billions at stake, all of a sudden, it's not going to be pure. Now, it was never pure, obviously, but if you think that they're not going to do match fixing and shit, you are fucking crazy, dude. That element of uncertainty goes away in that position. That's why motherfuckers say NBA has been fixed. It's always been the meta to just say that it's been fixed, but now it will be the reality. Well, NBA has been fixed too. I mean, through referees, but that's different.
I think it's bad for society. I mean, I like it. It's fun, but I think overall access to all these apps and gambling sites on the internet is, people get addicted to it, and I think they gamble too much, and it's going to hurt a lot of people.
We know from history, the more access people have to gambling, the more problem gamblers we're going to have. Why should people be excited about the expansion of this thing that we know is going to lead to bad outcomes for many people?
So I challenged maybe the assumption in the question. Betting was happening before legal, regulated American companies were running it.
I hate this argument, man. It's so dumb. You're literally unshackling it, though. And the larger you grow, the more legitimate you become, the less restrictive those regulations, those regulatory forces are going to be, because America is not a real democracy. It is an oligarchy. It's literally just an oligarchy, okay? You got whoever has the most money wins.
Operate under a principle that this is a form of entertainment and it should be fun, and have put a ton of effort around responsible gaming efforts.
Those efforts include sponsoring a weekly radio show in New York devoted to responsible gaming.
My story and personal history with gambling has been well documented.
But that won't outweigh the impact of all the gambling hype out there now.
We have this on FanDuel already. You can bet this.
According to gambling addiction counselor Rick Benson.
And what we are seeing, not surprisingly.
Damn, bro. You know what else he's addicted to? Fucking being drippy, okay? God damn. This guy is sick, okay? What a cool dude.
Many of these young gamblers are as addicted to their cell phone as they are to the gambling.
Benson was a problem gambler himself, but over time has found it possible to safely enjoy sports.
I still make it a point to stay away from point spreads. Point spreads and
what? Dog, the gambling counselor is like, yeah, you can still gamble safely. That's awesome. Dude, he still gambles, dude. He's like, I just don't do big spreads. Motherfucker, it didn't take. It didn't take, brother. I didn't want to say anything because he had the weirdest necklace, but like he has such a gambling ass look. Like, he looked like he still definitely gambles, okay? This is my counselor, dog. We're both gambling this weekend. Oh, that's awesome.
Money lines are none of my business.
It's hard to watch a game now, though, without seeing them on the screen. Do you think that's a problem for gamblers in recovery?
I think it's a problem for gamblers who are still gamblers and some gamblers in recovery. Absolutely. I think it's a problem.
But it's unlikely to change.
So let's take a look at FanDuel Sportsbook live point totals.
One gaming executive described the situation to us as a prisoner's dilemma, pushing sportsbooks, leagues, and broadcast networks
Stack the cash! Stack the cash!
into ever more aggressive marketing.
The touts and everyone else have been disingenuous about losing, have not talked overtly about bankroll. Just because you can live bet something and it's available doesn't mean you should do it.
Risk-free bet up to $1,000.
But ironically, it's the cost of all this promotion that could ultimately slow it down. Most sportsbooks are spending more on marketing than they're bringing in. A gamble that will leave just a couple big winners. Many of the companies now taking bets, just like the people placing them, will eventually be out of cash.
I also have them a different parlay money line.
For CBS Saturday Morning, Brooke Silva-Braga, Uncasville, Connecticut.
It's a really interesting dilemma in how much of this, when you look at addiction and the possibility and this accessibility and the money that can be raised for states, because there's a percentage that goes to the states as well. It's fascinating to me how it also is now with this younger audience. My son at 11 knows about gambling.
They all do, everyone, because you see the ads so much now.
Yeah.
And as long as if you're doing it with money you can lose.
That's the thing.
And understand that the house always wins.
Right.
But it is an engagement factor.
Yeah, casino floor on steroids in the pocket of your hand. We'll see you next.
Toothpaste doesn't go back in the tube.
Dude, that's crazy. Nuclear weapons convoy spotted in central Russia sparks fears Putin could be preparing to test the signal to the West. I don't know how real this is. A train operated by the secretive nuclear division and linked to the 12th main director of the Russian Ministry of Defense was spotted in central Russia over the weekend, heading towards the front line in Ukraine. I don't know how real that is. Okay. Also, BNO News is not very real either, but they said Japan emergency alert. North Korea has apparently launched a missile. Please evacuate target inside of a building or go to the basement. Target area, Hokkaido. What is happening, dude? Oh no, they're going to get Shinzo Abe. South Korea's defense ministry confirms that North Korea has launched a missile heading east. Wait, what? Civil protection information. Missile launch. Missile launch. The missile is believed to have been launched from North Korea. Evacuate inside a building or underground. Date and time received 7/27 on the 4th target area, Hokkaido, Tokyo. What is happening? North Korea launches missiles all the time. I know, but like they're not intended to hit landmass. This account is the official account of the Prime Minister's official residence. We will deliver government activity information related to disaster and crisis management. Bro, what the frick is happening, dude? VIP me for the road? No. Not Tokyo. It's a bad translation. It's actually headed towards Hokkaido. Missile launch. Missile launch. The missile is believed to have been launched from North Korea. Evacuate inside a building or underground. Target area, Aomori Prefecture. A so-called J alert, a Japan alert was just announced. North Korea launched missile that might land in our territory, including the northern part of our island. What is happening, dude? My dad works for North Korea and he said that shit fake. Breaking, Japan says North Korea has launched a missile and warns people to seek shelter immediately. Message running on local TV. North Korea appears to have launched a missile. Please evacuate to the inside of a building or go to the basement. Target area is Hokkaido. So here's the thing. Normally, this kind of missile launches happen. Should I actually get packed for it? What the fuck? I'm panicking. What the fuck? What are you, in Hokkaido? Get to a goddamn basement, chatter. What do you mean, should I be packing? Yeah, bro. If the TV man is telling you go to a fucking basement, yeah. Don't climb a tree. Do not climb a pole, chatter. That's the Florida chatters. Do not tell him to climb a pole. It's the opposite. He's getting closer to the missile, dude. Do not listen to the chatters. They're telling you to get the high ground to start masturbating. That's for Florida only, okay? Japanese people can't handle Florida activity like that. Likely an ICBM or an RRBM, which will fly over Japan and land in the Pacific Ocean. What the fuck? There a money line bet for this? Over under on how many neighborhoods burned down? That's what they're doing. Sponsored by FanDuel. What's going on, everybody? A lot of you want to know. How can I make money from this? Well, let me tell you. This happened 5 years ago. A North Korean missile has been detected. Take cover in a reinforced building.
It's 6 a.m. in the morning. It's rudely awoken by my phone going.
Rudely awakened by my phone going. It's going mental. Dog, it's a fucking missile, right? It's a fucking missile, mate. What do you mean rudely awakened by my phone? Oh, by the way, this is 5 years ago. This is from 2017. Being rudely awoken by a North Korean missile.
And going mental. And then there was this air raid siren going on outside for a missile from North Korea. I don't know if it's real or not, but it's not a very nice way to wake up in the morning. But what I do know is this area. I'm currently in Aomori on the Sea of Japan coastline. And I think last year a missile splashed down in the sea off the coastline, maybe I think about 100 kilometres out to sea. And then there was another missile not that long ago that crash landed just off the coast of Hokkaido.
Bro, what is happening right now? He's just like talking. Dog, are you in a basement? Because it doesn't seem like you're in a basement, motherfucker. It seems like you're out here just talking.
Your screen, at the center of your screen, it says you should seek shelter underground or in a building right now. Now, let's listen in to our NHK domestic service with simultaneous interpretation.
North Korea has been undertaking illegal activities, and the president of South Korea also has stated that the country would enhance cooperative measures in order to deal with North Korea. We do not know what type of missiles that have been launched, but North Korea on October 1st have launched 2 ballistic missiles. This year, so far, 23 missile launches have been confirmed by North Korea. North Korea is showing an aggressive attitude.
Stop biting your nails,
North
homie.
Korea-
Bro, how about you worry about yourself, man? What the fuck? These motherfuckers are launching missiles into Japanese sea so close that it's like alerting the Japanese government to alert the local citizens. And you're out and you're worried about me biting my nails, man.
Concerning missiles, and the leader Kim Jong-un has said that they will never compromise their nuclear.
There's no better time to bite your fucking nails, man. The time is now.
Different types of missiles, such as HasanAbi, and are trying to prepare for launching various missiles or preparing to have different missiles. How would North Korea act next? They are trying to develop a strategic nuclear missile and trying to make their nuclear missiles able to be put on a missile head. After China's Communist Party convention, North Korea is expected to take further action. According to experts in the United States, North Korea has been experimenting their engines, and they are trying to develop a new submarine that could carry nuclear warheads. Let me now tell you the areas where J Alert is in play. Aomori Prefecture, Nijima Prefecture, Miyake-mura, Ogasawara-mura. Information from the government is that the Prime Minister's office have gathered members, and now we have an updated information on J Alert.
Okay, it passed. It passed over.
Missiles have been launched.
It passed over Japan. Missile pass. Missile pass. The aforementioned missile is believed to have passed through the Pacific Ocean around 7:29. If you find anything suspicious, do not approach it and immediately contact the police or fire department. Okay, that was quick, man. Hey, we love to see it, folks. Just made 5K on that prop bet. Let's go. Doesn't this happen like every couple of months? Like I always hear about them fire missiles in the Sea of Japan. Yes, but not ones that go over Japan. Those are rare. Not ones that go over Japan that like are that cause the government to take action like that.
Hokkaido, about another 100 kilometers that way. So in this remote, far-flung region of Japan, the only thing the locals have to worry about normally are the bears, and now on top of the bears they've got North Korean missiles. It's a bit unfortunate. I've come here to hike through a forest, and while I was prepared to accept the danger of the bears, the missiles certainly add another element to that. Missiles and bears, that is what the people here have to worry about now, albeit not together. That would be quite unlikely, but also terrible. I'm in bed, just went back to sleep. Phone went off phone went off again, alarm went off again. Now I'm
getting reports that it passed over Japan and is heading for 123 HasanAbi Street in West Hollywood, LA. Okay, first of all, North Korea would never do that. I'm their most loyal soldier.
Angry. The emergency alert said the missile flew overhead though, so I better look that up. For fuck's sake, I was just woken up a third time, this time by the television switching itself on to report about the missile news. I didn't even know TVs could switch themselves on in Japan like that in emergencies. Probably makes sense, but it's so annoying, and now I've got to get out of bed and switch the TV off, for fuck's sake.
Why is he so chill about this? Like, I'd kind of be freaking out a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I've been in hurricanes and stuff, you know, and it's like it's kind of cool in a little, like, it's a little scary, but it's also kind of cool, right? Where you're just like, anyone who's ever been in a natural disaster knows what I'm talking about. I don't know how else to describe it. But he just doesn't care. He's just like, yeah, whatever, mate. I'm trying to fucking sleep, yeah? You can blow me up while I'm sleeping, yeah? I'm trying to be sleeping while the missile strikes. It's not cool, it's terrifying, but you do you, Hasan. No, there's like, dude, brother, I've been in one of the worst earthquakes in, like, recorded history, okay? Like, when I was a child. So, understand that I am very familiar with natural disasters that kill thousands, okay? But even in that, I was in Istanbul when the major earthquake happened when I was a young boy. And I saw, like, the entire city, major parts of the entire city reduced to rubble. My point is, when you are going through it, there's like this weird thing. There's this weird feeling, right? Hasan abi, sen 99 depreminde TR'de miydin? Evet abicim. İstanbul'daydım hem de. I lost my house to Hurricane Harvey. I'd say it doesn't feel cool anymore. No, there is like a weird feeling of sense of camaraderie. And as a chatter also pointed out, like morbid excitement throughout that tension. It might just be like a defense mechanism that launches the moment that you realize that there is an existential crisis happening around you. I don't know how to describe it other than that. Like, it almost feels cozy in a weird fucking way while you are certainly terrified for your life. This guy's not exhibiting any of that, though. He's just like, I'm trying to go back to sleep, yeah? Which is surprising. Depersonalization. I get what you mean, Hasan. The huge tornado that went through Kentucky December last year was like 100 feet away from my house, and I was having more fun than fear. It's also a weird thing because, like, then you have trauma afterwards. Like having a gun pointed at you. In the moment, at least for me, in my experience, it's like weird. There's a rush. Okay? But then afterwards, you're traumatized by it. For sure. Not great. But in the moment, that feeling of rush, that adrenaline, and the feeling of rush kicks in. And there's almost like this joyous moment. I don't know how else to describe it. But then you still get traumatized afterwards because it's really fucked up. But I can describe that feeling clearly. Someone held your ass up. Yeah, cops, man. Like, not. Emergency call has been canceled. I am not an adrenaline junkie in any way, shape, or form. I hate adrenaline. Or I hate chasing that high. I'm not a fan. I like sitting on my ass and not doing anything. getting reports that Kim Jong-un was upset over Dream's face reveal. Decided to nuke Florida while their anti-CRT defenses are down. All right, let's keep watching.
This is what annoys me about all the people who go to North Korea on holiday, because it's so different and unique, seeing a culture that's so weird and strange like the 1960s. Fuck off. Like, every time you go to North Korea, you're funding a regime that butchers its own people, that has hundreds of thousands of people locked away in concentration camps and fires missiles just stupidly and randomly at 6 a.m. in the morning. If you go to North Korea, you're...
This guy said, do you think it missed Japan? Damn, 7.6. Respect. I went through the 6.7 earthquake in Northridge in 1994. Shit's crazy. Yeah. I mean, that... 7.6 in Istanbul is a little bit different than, like, in Japan, too, by the way.
You're a fucking idiot. Don't go. And now I'm going to go to sleep, and I'm really angry.
And no, Kim did not miss. They don't do that. They do it on purpose. I don't know what's more ridiculous about this photo. Harry Styles' outfit or the Beto sticker on his guitar. It should say Beta. Fucking got him, dude. He's so good. North Koreans, do not interact, yeah? Don't fucking do it. I've been rudely awoken by a North Korean missile at 6 a.m., yeah? And I did not like it. I quite hated it, as a matter of fact. Not a big fan. Not a big fan at all. Why are you gloating about surviving an earthquake, Lamau? The only thing you can gloat about is another 4 to 10 top of the hour ad break. Fuck! Ah! Ah! Fuck off, man. This is my North Korea moment, yeah? Why do you pause videos and talk about it? Let the content play and talk at the same time or after? No, man. No! Dude, you're about to meet that guy if you're ever around Tokyo? Oh, for sure. This YouTuber is friends with Sea-Dog, Connor Dog, Virginia, by the way. Fuck yeah. I don't like it. But you know what I don't like even less than that? When you are forced to sit through another ad break instead of subscribing for $5 or for fucking free, mate. That's right. At the top of the hour, there's a 60-second ad break, yeah? And if you don't want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. You can do that for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. You can also get gifted a sub, yeah? Like D-Pipes just gifted. 5 gifted subs. Thank you, D-Pipes. Thank you for the break. Here's the ad break now.